Hey everybody, welcome to Equity Guru. This is Chris Parry. As always, with me today is Al Frame. Al's a bit of I would say, a resource legend in my books. You've done a few things in your time, but recently a couple of decent sized wins. You've set up Beyond Lithium, which to my mind is, for people that are looking to take lithium seriously, one of the few explorers out there that has really kind of given a strategy beyond just we have an old well that maybe there's some lithium in, and actually put out the desire to acquire and work some lithium properties. And you've also got in the background there Prismo Metals that we've talked about quite a lot over the last year, which similarly has runs on the borders of work being done. But for those that don't know about Beyond, let's give them the quick rundown, if you could.
Sure. Well, firstly, thanks for having me on your show. I really appreciate it. I guess the 35,000-foot view of Beyond is, we've got 150,000 plus hectares in Ontario, which are properties where we hope to explore and discover lithium, in abundant resources. And we've also got an awesome exploration team in my mind, people I've been working with for well over a decade. Lauren Sang is VP Exploration, is a really sharp character. And we've got Graham Evans, who is a more senior geologist, 40 years plus, and a lot of it with Tech Corp, who's sort of our market guru, we'll say. And and then we've got Paul Baxter, who has a ton of experience as well. So we've got great people now to look after our properties. And in the field, we've got the two prospectors we picked up the properties from, Jason and Jason, and they're really, really hardworking guys, very committed. And we've got 12-man crew or 12 crew members all together exploring for us. Our share structure is really good. We've got 28 million shares outstanding, not fully diluted, but a non-diluted number. And of that, over 50% is owned by the insiders. We are fully financed for the year. We've raised 1.4 million in flow through, and we've still got about 900 left, which we will definitely burn through because that's what we raised it for. We're excited about what we're seeing so far. It's all just coming together really, really well. So I'm extremely pleased. So there's kind of the overview, top view of where we are, what we're doing, and last but not least, we just completed phase one of our exploration program. Although we intended to visit all 64 properties for reasons beyond our control, i.e., forest fires, we only managed to see 39 of them, and of the remaining ones, 11 are restricted for helicopter survey and access because the helicopters are helping the forest fires, and the other 14 are restricted because of the forest fires. So there's the thumbnail sketch as to where we are today before I run out of breath here.
I want to just backtrack a second here. How many properties are we talking about now?
We have 64 properties
64.
comprising 150,000 plus hectares, which is huge by anybody's stretch of anybody's imagination. And the fact that we've managed to cover 39 of them, by the way, we probably would have covered 59 of them by now if we didn't have the restrictions. But it just shows you how active and aggressive and how organized our Lauren Sagg's team is in the field. They're doing just a bang up job. Really, really pleased.
So when people hear you've got 64 properties, there's going to be two things that they're going to think. One is you must have started 12 years ago. And the second is you're never going to get to even half of those properties. That's a lot of property.
Yes, it wasn't 10 years ago. It was about 4 months ago. But, my attitude was, if you're the new kid on the block, you better look different than everybody else. So it was like, go big or go home. So how can we look different, being one of literally hundreds of explorers out there? Well, the best and easiest way and the most productive way in my mind was to load up on properties, as long as they were properties of merit. And
Mhm.
I must say, these properties that we acquired, we're lucky. We had some synergies with the prospectors and we got along extremely well. And their ambitions and desires are the same as ours. But these guys spent 4,000 hours doing the research and 400 grand of their own money, prospectors' money, picking up property. So to me, that's some pretty serious commitment. So the opportunity was there. and we grabbed it, so now that we have it all, you say, how in God's green earth are you ever going to cover them all? Well, we're demonstrating that. We've done 39 of them, and we would have done more if it wasn't for the extenuating circumstances.
Yeah.
But that goes back to Lawrence and his geological and prospecting teams in the field. These guys are crackerjacks, and really, really happy with them.
So the fact that you raised financing in a down market where a lot of people are really struggling with that is important. The fact that you raised flow through and the ensuing commitment that the money's going to go into the ground and not office space or country club fees or private jets is a real plus, I think, for retail investors who may be a little bit jumpy when it comes to allocating their cash into the junior markets. You've got the runs on the board of acquiring all those properties. You've got your history. You've got the fact that you're working and the fact that you're raising money in a time when a lot of people aren't. That's a lot of pluses. Is there anything that keeps you up at night, or do you think you've got it all covered?
Oh, at this age, I am 73. Getting up in the morning is a good thing, and no matter what happens, as I'm sure you can imagine. So no, this is one of those projects. Firstly, the structure was good, so it's attractive. To me, it's not blowing up into a couple 100 million shares. It's 28 million. So there's lots to work with.
Right.
And the properties are turning out to be very, very interesting. So to raise the flow through money for me is the only way to go. Like at this stage in my life, like firstly, I don't need a job. Well, let's be clear on that.
Sure.
But this is a fun project for me. Nothing keeps me up at night because I have the utmost confidence in our team. If there's anything of any commercial value to be found on these properties, I'm convinced we're going to find it. Not me, but them, the team. They're
Right.
awesome. So no, these guys provide me with good nights. I sleep like a baby every night. I love the way it's turning out. We've got tons of news on the horizon, and it's a super fun project.
And your stock is up, and not just up, but like really solidly up over the last year, but specifically over the last month. You've really gone on a bit of a tear. And again, I point out to people that aren't paying much attention, the markets are terrible. Like everyone's assuming that they need to have their money in cash and not equities, but you guys are out there going against gravity.
Well, yeah, but there's a couple of reasons for it. We were trading around 40-ish, 35, 40 cents. And then a month or so ago, we came under some pressure in the markets and our stock dropped fairly dramatically,
Hmm.
from 40 down to 20. So it dropped in half. And that was mainly because there was a private placement of non-flow through shares done back in February and they became free. At 40-cent stock on a 20-cent deal, obviously people are
Sure.
going to want to cash in and sell. So they did. But it also gave me the opportunity to remind people that were interested anyway that the stock with 28 million, if you want to buy a million shares, you're not going to do that every day.
Yeah.
You have to take the opportunities when there's stock available, and there was stock available. And secondly, I say we're the new kid on the block. So if you take a look at your average Greenfields Explorer in Ontario, if you use a per hectare comp, which is maybe a weird comp, but lots of people use it.
Sure.
On average, these Greenfields Explorers like us trade at about $400 a hectare. So in our biggest run up to 50 cents, we're 15 million bucks. So we're $100 a hectare. So we're trading at 25% of what our peers trade at. And yet we have the biggest land position. We have the ability to raise capital because of previous experiences. We've got an awesome team. We've got everything going for us. But I think the reason we're trading for less is because we're new. The other guys have been exploring longer than us. Well, we're going to catch up to them. And I tell people, hey, we're here to explore. That's what we are. We will explore, we'll catch up, and maybe they're too high and maybe we're too low. But, to me, I still think even at 50 cents, which was where we just recently hit, that stock looks pretty cheap compared to our peers. Now what we have to do is produce and provide information from the field saying, yeah, like, we're going to create real value for you here. Share price increase is nice, but nothing sustainable unless you do something in the field to create additional value. And that's what we're all about. We're here to build a winner, and shareholders come first for us all the time. If I don't see something that's going to have some benefit to shareholders, yeah, I'm thinking pretty darn hard about not doing it at all.
Well, and look, you think if you're a numbers guy, and let's be pessimistic and say that 1 in 10 lithium properties turns out to be pretty good. You've got 60. That means that you've got the basis of 6 good lithium explorers all wrapped in one, plus 50 others that are a dice roll. Okay, those are pretty good odds.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I say, I mean, let's face it, exploration is risky. You shouldn't be involved in exploration companies unless you're risk tolerant, right? Obviously.
Yep.
But, instead of having one or two shots on one or two properties, you got 64 shots here, people. You know that old saying, even a blind chicken gets the odd kernel of corn. So I think we've got a good team. I think we are working really hard, and we've already identified 10 of the 39 properties that qualify for more in-depth work, being geochem and trenching, extensive mapping, which should obviously lead us into phase three for 2023, which we believe will be a series of short holes amongst the most attractive of the ones we're putting into phase two. But 10 of them already qualified, and we still have 25 to look at. And we still are waiting for most of our lab results. So for all I know, there's another 10 we can jam in there too. So, we're narrowing it down, but the field we're narrowing down to is a huge field of exploration targets.
A huge field of exploration targets in one place. And that's important, I think, as well, because there's guys out there that will say we're prospect generators. We've got one in Bolivia. We've got one in Quebec. We've got one in BC. We've got one in Nevada. Having all of your stuff in one place, it presents great economies of scale, I think.
It really does for us. Can you imagine having 12 guys in the field in 12 countries? And geez, we would have had to raise like 5 million just
Even just
to
12 provinces
cover
or
the
states.
airfare, cover
Yeah,
the airfare. So yeah, and another reason I'm happy to be concentrated is because I think Quebec and Ontario being the most population in the country and more politically motivated for green issues than perhaps some of the provinces in the West, and not to say anything negative about the West, but population bases have the loudest voice, they get the most government attention, et cetera, et cetera. I see a buildup of infrastructure that helps all explorers and developers for lithium and other products in Ontario and Quebec over some of the other provinces per se. Not to take away from the other provinces, because the shield is a shield is a shield, and it's a big one, right?
sure.
And there's pegmatites throughout the Canadian shield, and I have no doubt there will be some significant discoveries in every province that has the shield in it. So yeah, at any rate, that's my view. Don't get me going too much on politics here, though. So
Well, yeah, that's a whole other podcast.
yes,
So, in terms of, as a company that has that many properties, generally speaking, folks would look at you as being a prospect generator or, the scouting team for the bigger boys. But I haven't seen you spinning anything out yet. Is that something that is in the business plan, or really are you doing it differently? You're not just looking to be the lithium supermarket, but more spreading your bets and zeroing in as you go on what's going to be the mega hits?
yeah. My view is this. Because I have so much faith and confidence in our exploration team. Once we're completed phase one, which we sort of are now, but not really because some of it's deferred.
Sure.
Phase two is the most important for me, but we make no mistake about it. We're going to continue to explore the properties we like the best, but the ones that we probably would look to JV, and we've had many, many interesting offers, but how can I do that until we complete our work? I don't
Yeah.
really know how to do that, right?
Yeah.
But we will be doing some joint ventures for sure, and not to take away from the ones we want to drill and the ones we want to joint venture, but you can only cover so much territory. So I'm going to be realistic about it. So we are first and foremost an explorer on our own. Secondly, and almost equally important, we will be a project generator in that we're going to joint venture some targets that are of interest that we can get a carried interest, say 30% on, along with some cash and shares, which would be wonderful. Non-dilutive way of financing hard dollars. And last but not least, we will call some of these properties out because you don't want to be paying all these costs on and on and on and on if they're not
Mhm.
highly prospective. So we're trying to take a couple of years worth of normal work and jam them into one season. We got a good early jump on it, so we got lots of men in the field where I'd hate to have to start a project now. Where are you even going to get your people from?
Yeah.
So we got ahead of the game, ahead of the curve, and the land acquisition and on the exploration. And hey, we're early days in phase two already, which we haven't planned till the middle of August. So the answer to your question is yes to everything. We want to do it all.
Do you want to be a producer?
What was that?
Do you want to be a producer?
No, I wouldn't think I want to be a producer simply because that's a whole different set of skills, you know.
Hmm.
We're explorers, and I love the exploration business. I've been involved with lots of companies that have gone from early stage exploration right through to production. And I got to tell you, they're lots of fun till somebody tells you what the Lassonde curve is. And
Right.
then you think, oh my God, what have I done? You know, I give away my firstborn to be out of out of the production game. It's just a different skill set. It's way more
Yeah.
capital intensive, and it takes, you know, a whole bunch of engineers that are really, you know, like-minded, smart individuals to do it. And this company, make no mistake about it, is an explorer.
And getting to production is a slow business, whereas what you've demonstrated is that you're quick off the starting blocks.
Hey, I have to be. I'm 73. I can't wait 10, 15 years for a permit.
True, true enough. Look, there's a lot of lithium companies out there that are more likely to hit lithium if a Tesla explodes on the property than if they drill it. Um, how do you tell the difference between something that's a genuinely good prospect and something that, someone needs to pay a bar tab for?
Well, you know, I look at a lot of announcements, and the headline is found pegmatites. Geez, you can see them from your airplane if you go fly to Europe. You
Yeah,
know, they're not hard to find, right? They're not hard to find at all. But you know, then you have to get into the science behind it. And I mean, I like guys that, you know, firstly, you have to have all the right buzzwords so you can properly explore and continue with your exploration. You know, these LIVS tools are pretty awesome. They give you a clue for whether you're in the ballpark or not right off the bat. We use those as well. But I see a lot of companies, in my view, they almost look like desperate news announcements. Found a pegmatite, you know, we're all excited. Well, good for you.
right.
I mean, you could probably get, if you had a cabin somewhere in the lake, you'd probably have a pegmatite too. But
Yeah.
you know, it's the science behind it and the depth of exploration that I'm interested in, and there are a lot of companies that are awesome explorers out there too. You know, it's like any industry, you get the good, the bad, and the ugly, and that's the way the world works.
It's also like I'm thinking a little bit of a strong ability to be able to go through old mining data for properties where lithium was once in the way, where maybe nobody's looked for a long time because the primary target is no longer something that's sustainable. But buried deep in the data is, oh yeah, we had this hole that had a whole bunch of lithium and we couldn't drain it out to get to the stuff we were interested in.
Yeah, hey, that's interesting because, you know, we've got over 400 holes drilled on our properties by other companies, which is pretty interesting to me. So you look at the old logs and they say, no gold, bunch of green stuff, hit the hole or abandoning it. You know,
Right,
so the 4,000 hours of research was looking for things like that, you
right.
know, by the prospectors, which I thought was pretty impressive. You know, so I think we have at least 12 holes that are still available. We've already picked up a couple of them, relogged them, and assaying them because, as you know, you can take them from the government facility as long as you send the information back,
Right.
you know, and we're going to do more. So it's like free drill holes for us. So that's a bonus. You know, I haven't mentioned anything about that before, but, you know, that may very well turn up some lithium like freebies, you know, I
Yeah.
don't know, but it's a bonus and it's really inexpensive. You just have to take the time to go and accumulate them and relog them and do that. So yeah, there's a lot of information. So most of that core has been lost. So the 400 plus, if we got 20, I'd be pretty happy.
Going forward with 60 plus properties already under your belt, I imagine one, you have a lot of other companies offering you more. And two, I imagine there might be some feeling that no, this is enough.
Well, like they say, everybody loves their own girl best, right?
Right.
So, you know, obviously I'm prejudiced towards our properties, but to be honest with you, well, firstly, number one, yes, have I had inquiries about JVs? Oh yeah, from all over the world. So I'm impressed with that, and that's without any data, you know, other than a land map. So now that we're creating data and building up a data room, nobody's gone away. But my view is how can I carry on with these conversations on JVs until we at least have a good look at our own properties, which we're presently doing. So yeah, there's some offers that have been very blunt and, you know, very obvious as to what they would pay for them, which I thought was pretty impressive, but if the offers from on the blind are that good, they should be better if I've got a little substance and a good data room. So I'm just not fussed about it at all. I know there will be many opportunities for many good companies to carry on work programs, which we can still participate in through the carry. So I sit back almost smugly thinking, when we get to that stage, they'll still be around and perhaps others will be interested because there's more data. So I'm very comfortable with it.
So it's a poker game. You've just had the flop, and no need to go all in just yet.
No, that's for darn sure. Yeah, like Kenny Rogers said, you got to know when to hold them and you got to know
Yes.
when to fold them, right?
Yes, indeed. Are you still picking up properties, or are you at the point where you're about manageable?
Well, I'm not outwardly seeking acquiring properties. However, as you work and prospect and work in the field, certain things tweak your interest a little more than you thought they would. And if there's available land in the vicinity, I'm all for it, right? And we have been doing that. You just see some of your properties. Oh, looks like my trend is over here, and there's a little bit of loose land there. So I think it's as a responsible explorer and a president and CEO, you got to beef up your positions when you see those opportunities, and they have presented themselves, and we have taken advantage of them.
Right. What is if people are looking at you over the next few months? Like, what can they expect news-wise?
Well, lots of news because we have over 700 samples at the lab. We have over 160 libs, shots we took. But, before we talk too much about those, we want to see if the lab thinks our gun is high, low, or on the mark, right? So we've got an awful lot of information to come up with from the labs, which I think once we start getting a better flow instead of dribs and drabs, we can probably make news, assay result news every couple of weeks right through till practically till the end of the year. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we are getting into the early stages of phase two, which is much more in-depth geochem trenches, mapping, and we'll report as we do that work. And phase two will generate some drill targets, although I must emphasize, I'll tell you the reason why. We're going to drill some short holes before the snow flies. You could drill through the winter, but it's so prohibitively expensive or can be. I don't know if I want to expose our company to that.
Hmm.
But if you apply for a permit, where you use a regular rig and you drill deeper holes, it'll probably take 4 to 5 months on average in Ontario to get your permit. Whereas under our exploration permit right now, you can drill the shallower holes using lighter equipment and still cover it off in your exploration permit. So that's what the goal is. So those are the things to look forward to. So, we got great land position. Already we cherry picked 10 of them that, we're more in love with than the rest of them. And we still have a pretty good love affair going with all of them. And we will lead to some drilling before year end. We are fully financed, and the company's share structure upon successful exploration should provide shareholders with some pretty good market torque as well. And we do lag our peers by a significant amount, but I'm okay with that. I mean, we'll earn our way up into the pack. That's the name of the
Hmm.
game.
Well, I mean, if being down at this price and having as much upward action as you've had over the last year, I don't think anyone would be complaining if things continue as they are, let alone get even better. Let's go macro for a second. There's no secret that we're going to be using a lot of lithium going forward, and need more and more of it every year. But from if I look back to the Lithium X days when lithium's first hot go round a couple of years ago, the thing that killed off that run was the belief that the big boys can turn on the taps anytime they need to if demand goes up. Do you believe that that's the case, or still the case, or is there a real need to explore and add to the supply?
I think I don't. I think that the big boys can't turn on the taps whenever they want. I think we've got a 10-year window where the demand is going to be pretty hot. I do see the Pac-Man game coming in the lithium business, especially for hard rock miners. Once there's a little more critical mass, more infrastructure in Canada per se, yeah, I see the big boys mopping up all of it. I don't see 100 lithium mines in Canada. I see a couple, right?
Right.
And I think it'd be the hub and spoke model. You get because a lot of these properties, the general proximity, like for most of our stuff, you can drive through. So if you had one central mill, I mean, you could knock off half of the operators in Ontario. So that's what I think will ultimately happen, and that's the view that I have, and I think we'll fit into that pattern and that play quite nicely, assuming we can find some positive economic resources. I think there'll be lots of buyers. But I think we're early. I think the next 2 years are going to be kind of hot and heavy, and I think it'll be good for the next decade.
Indeed. Well, I guess the thing about the big guys turning on the taps, it means that they're just filling lakes that then have to sit there and bake in the sun for a couple of years. So the ability to match demand is they've either got to have a good crystal ball or they've got to have backup. And rock seems like a good backup.
Exactly. It's also interesting. Yeah, a really good backup. Take a look at Australia. So those guys are ahead of the game. They pounded Australia pretty hard there, and they came up with a lot of lithium resources, which makes them a really big supplier in the world scale. Where are they focused? Where are those guys trying to get into? Take a look around. Look at Ontario. Look at Quebec. And
Hmm.
you will all be speaking with Aussie accents. Hey, mate, and nothing flat. But I mean, they're telling the tale there. They're coming
Yeah.
here because they believe it.
Yeah.
They're totally committed in Canada.
Well, those big boys have been spending big money in Australia recently. They're really starting to make some acquisitions, which tells me that if they could just hit a button and walk into the demand, there'd be no reason to do that.
I like these Australians. Their whole market approach is funny to me, though. This is kind of an aside to our conversation, but you get a stock trading at 3 cents, but yet it's got a market cap of 3 billion. It's
Right.
amazing. So they don't care about tight markets, obviously, but hey, they're big, they're smart, they're ahead of everybody, and they love Canada. That's good enough for me.
And good enough for me too. If you could, it seems like everything's going on track to the business plan right now. But if you could wave a magic wand and have one thing happen, what would it be? What would be better than what you've currently got?
Well, I think a good economic lithium discovery is the name of the game for everybody.
Right.
Right now, well, I'd be happy, at this stage, because remember, we're pretty early stage still. So I can't say to you I'd be happy right now with a long hole because we're not going to drill a long hole. That's next year's business. But I'd be happy with a short hole, or I'd just be happy, with enough coming back from the lab to tell me that I have an above average chance of finding some commercial, economic lithium on one or more of our properties. I'd be a very, very happy guy, and I'm very optimistic that's where we're going to end up.
Well, with 700 samples sitting on their desk right now, when other guys tell me that there's a log jam at the labs, I'm going to know right now it's Al Frame's fault.
Yeah, I take full responsibility.
You've
Sorry,
messed it all
boys.
up for everybody.
I couldn't help myself. Didn't know when to quit.
Al, it's always a pleasure talking to you, man. And over the last year, when we talked about Prismo, we didn't set anybody wrong. When we talked about Beyond, we haven't set anybody wrong. So you make my job a lot easier by just doing the right things. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Chris. I've spent a long time and watched people make mistakes for most of my career. I'm trying not to repeat them. I'm doing the best that I can with shareholders' interest in mind, because for me, as a broker and now as the president and CEO of this public company, that's who I work for, boy. I mean, it's all about the shareholders. It's their company, and I have a job to do on their behalf. And to the best of my ability, I'm going to try to deliver the goods for them. So thanks for being shareholders, everybody. I love you. Thanks.
The ticker symbol is BY, Beyond Lithium. And this is Al Frame, CEO and experienced guardian of retail wealth. Appreciate what you've been doing. Let's talk soon.
Thank you very, very much, Chris. It's always great talking with you. It's you make it fun for everybody. So all the best to you and your listeners and followers. Thank you so much.